Aloha kako guys, and welcome to Just and True. I just want to do a real quick briefing on this threatening naval situation we have going on in the South China Sea. As usual, the South China Sea is a hotbed for naval threats, more so than even the Gulf. We saw last month that there was a few threats from the Rear Admiral Huan coming from China, saying that if we do our freedom of navigation show of force, the United States and the UN within the South China Sea or in the Philippine Sea, then they will rather ram us. Well, now we did our freedom of navigation show, our operation. We exited from the north in the Philippine Sea. We went down towards Laos and then back up, and we were at smack dab cruising around right outside the South China Sea. And this Rear Admiral came out and said that if we were to this is what he said we need to sink 2 of these U.S. carriers, these aircraft carriers, and it will end the dispute in the South China Sea. This Rear Admiral is one of the largest and most powerful military officials in the South China Sea for the Chinese naval forces. And he is seriously suggesting to not only China but also to us, whether it's a bluff or not, is kind of besides the point, because he is disclaiming to them and us that if they were to sink 2 of our aircraft carriers there, which I think one is it might be the Stinson and the Nimitz, I'm not sure at the time, I think it's probably the Stinson and the Nimitz that are out there in the South China Sea, each of whom have 5,000 service members aboard them. So if they were to sink 2, that'd be a 10,000 casualty loss. And this is what he describes in his statement. This isn't coming from me. He is telling basically the world that the United States, above anything, is afraid of casualties, and that if they were to sink 2, it would have a drastic change in the show of force there in the Yellow Sea, and they don't think that the United States would reciprocate with any kind of manpower or with any kind of large conflict, is what this Rear Admiral is saying. Whether or not that's true, whether or not it's going to happen, is a totally different subject entirely, but he did come out and have these huge, heavy threats. To back it up with a little bit more evidence for his claims, they did add a few more of their light assault vehicles. They don't have a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier yet. I think they either just built it or it's still being tested. It isn't actually full functional with a full crew yet. They do have a barrage of aircraft carriers and smaller destroyers and smaller assault vehicles, nothing like ours. So they do believe that if they were to get rid of those 2 aircraft carriers, they would be able to shore up their defenses and build more of these man-made islands in the South China Sea. What they're doing is building, I'm sure you already know, building these man-made islands in the South China Sea where there was once no land. They would build up a massive amount of land on these atolls, bring it to feet above the water level, and then build either a FOB or a landing strip, building an air defense system, building missile defense systems all over the South China Sea in contested territory between them, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, all the Southeast Asian countries right there. So they're just grabbing land left and right. We go in there to try and slow them down, and now they're threatening to literally sink 2 of our largest vessels, which are huge. These things are absolutely ginormous. They're floating cities, and they're nuclear powered as well. So it would not be pretty. And that's what the Chinese Navy is threatening to do to us. Again, I'm not saying that this will happen, but it has come from China that they are now threatening to sink our vessels, our large aircraft carriers, if we do not exit the South China Sea. Last month they threatened that they ram us. That never happened. They're threatening that they will sink our ships, and they're saying that we won't respond in force. So we'll see. That might just be a bunch of heat being blown to try and get us out of the area. But knowing the administration now and knowing the American public, I don't think that this is something that the American public or the administration will be too fond of. Me personally, I know that a lot of people think that We shouldn't be in foreign countries. We should focus home. We shouldn't be in the Yellow Sea. We shouldn't be in all these other areas abroad the world. And I agree almost completely with all that. We shouldn't be the world police. We shouldn't be in Syria. There's much smarter ways to support allies throughout the world with strategic strike groups, with multifunctional, multi-branch military forward operation bases and international co-ops. There's lots of ways to do it besides just being the world police. I do, however, think that we need to have a force somewhere between us and China in the Pacific on the border of the Philippines, or if not the South China Sea. Because if not, the South China Sea will be completely owned by China, and they will have a massive buildup of Navy that would be almost unprecedented. And if they build the right defenses and they build the right offensive measures there, then it would be almost impossible to do anything about it once it gets to a certain area. And again, they are illegally taking land from other countries that just don't have the power to dispute China. They are going in international land and international waters and building Chinese land and saying it's theirs. But most importantly, just want to let you guys know that China did threaten to sink 2 of our larger carriers, which would not be a very smart move. It wouldn't be good for anybody. You, me, them, us, the world, period. So keep your eyes out on South China Sea. Make sure you're not just thinking about the Ukrainian crisis, what's going over there in the Black Sea. Make sure you're not just thinking about the Gulf. Make sure you're not just thinking about Syria, the Middle East. It is a global world theater. We got lots going on in Africa. We got lots going on in the South China Sea, the Philippine Sea. We got lots going down in Antarctica with this big race, with these new Russian ships going down there. Southern and Central America are getting more and more armaments as well. So just keep your eyes on the prize. Keep yourself grounded. Don't live in fear. There's nothing to be afraid of, especially if you have Christ in your life. But we need to be aware of our enemies. We need to be aware of our own country, aware of our own government, because the only way that we can stop it or we can voice our opinion if something's happening that we don't like it is by understanding that it's happening and then telling people that we don't want it to happen. Anyway, that is it. Aloha, mahalo for coming in, and ahui ho until next time.